This is a 1982 Series 3 Land Rover MOD FFR. MOD stands for Ministry of Defense. FFR means fitted for radio. So it was a former military truck that I several years ago found on the internet, and paid the guy, sent him a check and paid for the shipping, and he sent it to me here in Las Vegas. So I've enjoyed having this, and this video is to tell you about how I've worked on this thing, things I've changed, and places I've been. This is how it looked when I got it, except that it was olive drab green. I didn't want a military truck, and so I took about 7 or 8 cans of Rust-Oleum, 7 or 8 cans spray paint of Rust-Oleum putty is the name of the color, and I masked things off and painted it. Originally, when I got it, it was army green, olive drab. I didn't want a I didn't want a military truck, but wanted a more of a safari vehicle, and so I liked this tan truck. My wife and I spent about 6 years in Africa doing missionary work for our church, and when I was there, I saw these all over the place, mostly the newer Defenders, but the police had them, the tour companies had them, the Army had them, and I kind of fell in love with these Land Rovers. And the only thing I did, I've added a few things. I've added this hijack on the back to get me out of the sand if I needed it. I put this little shovel on the back so that I could dig myself out, but I've never used it. I've never used the jack either. I usually carry a bigger full-size shovel with me, and that's just more or less decoration now. I also put on new tires, which I'll talk to you about later. And I took the windows off. These windows are just bolted on here with 2 bolts. You take those bolts off, and the window just lifts off, and so then you have more of a convertible. I kept the spare. That's the original tire that came with it. I added a tow rope on the front to get people out of trouble. I've never been stuck on this, but I've had to pull people out that were stuck, that were in our group. So this is my 1982 Land Rover, almost as I've got it, as I received it, except for the... This is what it looks like after I've taken off the windows and rolled up the sides. This is what I go out in the desert with. I have enjoyed the windows off. I've never put them back on. I figure in the cold weather I'll wear a coat and gloves. In the hot weather I basically stay home. But it's great being open like this, and it looks more like a safari vehicle rather than a military vehicle. So it's great for camping and being out in the great great desert of the Southwest. On another video, I'll show you places that I've been. I've been down to the edge of the Grand Canyon a couple of times, up to Delamar Gold Mine. I've been up in the Clover Mountains, the Beaver Dam Wash, down into Southern California a little bit. So it's a great vehicle for all the camping that I want to do. This is the interior of the back. The nice thing about these Land Rovers is that everything is square and straight and flat, and so it's easy to attach things. It's easy to make modifications with the flat surfaces. One last thing I wanted to show you is, if you can see it, is you see the blue up there? Originally this was all olive drab, and I painted it a rattle can tan, I call it, but it's a Rust-Oleum color. The name of the color is putty, and so I think it looks nicer with this tan color. But underneath the olive drab, there's this blue color, and I suspect that that is a NATO blue, and so this was probably in some European military with under the direction of NATO, because every now and again I see blue NATO. This is what I used to paint it. Rust-Oleum satin. Turn it around. The color right there is where's the color? Color right there is putty. So it took about 7 or 8 cans to paint this. I masked it off good, and since it's kind of a desert vehicle, I didn't really care that much. I just didn't want it olive drab. So there you have it for today.